You are now listening to Talk Your Jits podcast.
Welcome back to the Talk Your Jits podcast. This podcast is, as the name implies, all about jiu-jitsu. I'm your host, Lamar Smith, and today's guest is a second-degree black belt who teaches at Baker's MMA and Fitness, located in Phoenix, Arizona. Welcome back, Nestor Mendez.
How's it going, Lamar? Good to hear from you, man.
Man, likewise, man. It's been too long, man. It's been too long.
Yeah, I think a little over a year, I think.
Two. No. Yeah.
Two?
Almost coming up on 2 years.
Coming up on 2 years, yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're on Facebook all the time with each other, but you know.
All right, man. Well, let's give the people what they want, man. If you want to introduce yourself yet again, by all means, and let's catch up on your jiu-jitsu journey, man.
Yeah, Nestor Mendez, black belt under Marcelo Cavallo here in Phoenix, Arizona. Been a black belt since 2014, so going on 10 years now this year. And I'm currently heading up the jiu-jitsu program at Baker's MMA and Fitness in Surprise, Arizona.
Nice. Cause I remember last time because you was at what was it, GFT?
Yeah, still part of GFT.
Okay.
I was splitting my time, so I would try to get out to GFT headquarters in Surprise, which is at Blue Star Grappling. But most of my week was spent at Abunai up in Avondale, Arizona, training out of a friend's academy there. So a few months back, an opportunity came up at one of our affiliates, Baker's MMA, also in Surprise. His jiu-jitsu instructor had gone to another gym. He needed the extra help. I was available, so I went ahead and stepped in to pick up the program there.
Nice. So how has it been, teaching there?
I love teaching. It's honestly kind of where my passion has been, sharing the art and bringing people up. It's been great there. It's a wonderful facility there in Phoenix. It's got a full-size cage, big mat space, and then there's a smaller grappling room, a bag room for kickboxing, and a full-size gym in there. And they've got a great kids program. We've probably easily got about 30 to 50 kids in the program there. A lot of them there, and that's my little knee-high killers team right there. They're doing MMA and they're doing jiu-jitsu, and they're choking fools out every day. They've got a good adults program. They got people that are passionate about it. The owner, Glenn Baker, is a retired MMA fighter. He fought at the highest levels, and so he knows what it takes to bring them up to those high levels. We did an event a couple months back where it's kind of for all the members and the kids, where we put up lights. We set it up like it's an MMA show. We got the cards set up. We match them up. They get entrance music, the lights flashing. We've got the crowd there. We can sit about 200 or 300 people in the big room. So we make it so it's like a big event for the kids, and we just do it as a keep the federal, not federation, but the athletic commission out. We do it as like a demonstration. But
like
the kids get to get out
thing,
there. Yeah, just a little in-house thing. The kids get to have the lights and their entrance music, and they come out and they fight. And we run them like a camp a few weeks before, get them ready for their fights. So it's a good little event, and we'll be doing another one here in the fall.
That's dope. Hold on one second.
But hey, I wanted to give you a big congratulations. Since the last time we talked, you got your black belt. That was awesome to see.
Yeah. It's still a shock to me.
Yeah, it took me a little while to adjust to people calling me professor and sensei, and people acted a little weird towards you a little bit,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a toxic community we live in, but anyway, but I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. But it was it was crazy that I got my black belt last year, and it still kind of feels like I'm still in that kind of like brown belt mindset or whatever. And once I was like, okay, I can start to understand what it means to be a black belt until I went out to Cali in May. And when there was like 100 black belts on the mat. And I was literally like, me and my training partner, maybe like a couple other people was like, oh, we just got our black belts maybe like months in between of each other. And then you look over, there's room with people like, second, third, fifth degree black belts, just all around the room. It's like, damn, man, I feel like another white belt.
Yeah.
Just going.
I had a friend of mine, he's a black belt in Las Vegas, Chad Lyman, and the day I got my black belt, he calls me up to congratulate me because I'd been training with him since I was a white belt in Vegas. And he goes, "Congratulations, man, you're the whitest of black belts." And I absolutely got what he meant by that. Yeah. And it's funny because I was talking to somebody the other day, and I pointed out to him, I said, on the Western part of the world, our idea of a black belt is very different than it is like in Japan. In Japan, the black belt means now you understand and now you're really starting to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the Western world, they look at a black belt and they say, oh, well, that's the expert. And I'm like, I'm by no means the expert. Right. I'm just figured out that I know how to learn things.
Yeah, very much. Very much. Like it's crazy. Like you get that conversation. It's like people like, oh, you're a black belt. What does that mean? Like I just know enough to know.
Yeah. It's like the saying of wisdom,
Uh-huh.
I was gonna say it's like that saying about wisdom. You become wise when you realize you don't know anything.
Yeah. And I preach that a lot. Like I do not. This belt does not signify I know anything. I know jack squat about jiu-jitsu. I'm just learning what jiu-jitsu stands for. Now I'm really learning. Like now I'm really trying to learn what jiu-jitsu is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a fun time though. It's a wonderful time. Like I said, I've been a black belt now 10 years. It'll be 10 years in November. And I look back on it and I go, man, I can see the things that I've learned and the things I'm doing, but now I'm passing more on. I'm sharing more, and how I share it has changed. The way I explain it, the way that I go about giving the details. Even the details I give are different now than they were even a couple years back. It's always just an evolution.
Yeah, and I like asking people that question about like their stint in jiu-jitsu, because being like second, third, fourth degree, and all this stuff, it's years in between of getting your degrees, and on top of how long you already been training. Like, what has it been like for you seeing how jiu-jitsu when you started versus how it is now?
One of the big things that I've noticed is kind of the separation between MMA and jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
When I started in 2005, 2006, jiu-jitsu and MMA were still intertwined very heavily. There weren't a lot of gyms. There were a few like Jackson's and the Militich camp, both of which I got the chance to train under. But those were the few teams where you could go and do everything. You could do your jiu-jitsu, you could do your wrestling, your MMA, your kickboxing. A lot of the fighters, like Gina Carano at the time when she fought Julie Kenzie back then in 2006, she would go from Master Toddy's where she would do her stand-up, then she'd go to Cobra Kai to do her jiu-jitsu, and then Scott, who owned OTM, who was coaching her at Cobra Kai, would bring it all together and corner her. That was a common practice. People would go across town to go do things, and then because the jiu-jitsu people had the experience of bringing it all together and being in the MMA fight, you saw them bringing things together like that. And now I kind of understand what Hickson means by anti-jujitsu, because in MMA, that's what you get a lot of. They've got so much to put together, and got people that just want to get out there and fight within a year, within 6 months, within a couple years, and they don't have the time to learn all the little intricacies of the jujitsu game.
Mhm.
And so they learn how to stand up, how to escape positions, how to not get caught in those common submissions, and then to avoid getting down on the ground if at all possible.
Right.
And so you see academies nowadays that completely took MMA out of their programs. They don't even want MMA fighters training at their academies. And there are some MMA academies where they might have a jiu-jitsu class, but it's not. It's just a no-gi class, or it's just the MMA type jiu-jitsu that they need. They're not as intertwined as they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a bit of a separation there. And I understand it. The sport's evolved, and how it's applied has evolved. And the sport on the jiu-jitsu side has evolved. There's all these different type of guard games that you can play, and these dynamic guard passing systems. And in all honesty, you don't need that for MMA, because passing is a consequence of getting punched in the face.
Right.
So I don't need to know the leg drag and the bullfighter pass, and I don't need to know all these different dynamic passing systems or all these crazy guards, because look, if I go into X guard, I'm probably going to get punched in the face too.
Right.
So is it necessary for somebody that's just focused in having an MMA career need to learn all that dynamic guard play and all that guard passing when you're not really going to use it? No, it's stripped down in MMA to its basic form of positional awareness, escaping, and not getting caught in submissions, and knowing the submissions in case you need them.
Mm-hmm.
And back in the day when I started, like I said, they were much more intertwined. Jiu-jitsu was a much bigger part of it. And everybody believed they had to get those belts. They had to get to that black belt to be able to function in MMA. I even thought when I first started that part of the prerequisite of getting a black belt was to take an MMA fight. That was the impression I was under.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, some black belts, like a friend of mine, Israel Juarez, he got his black belt directly from Joe Moreira back years ago. And when he got his black belt, he had my professor, Marcelo Cavallo, and a bunch of other black belts there with Joe Moreira. And they put on gloves, and his job was to get in a top position while he got punched in the face by them. And that was the guy that he went through to get his black belt. You don't really see that a whole lot anymore.
Yeah. And that's been, we train under Joe Moreira, so that's been in our curriculum since I started training under his banner. And it's crazy to hear, like, schools that don't pressure test their students or their rankings and stuff like that. It's like, I thought that was the norm. I thought everybody did that. But just to hear, like, no, our school don't do that. They just, they'll just give you your belt after so much, after time, or we don't roll or spar or anything. We just, train. So I'm like, what? How are you really doing jiu-jitsu if you're not applying what you're trying to understand?
Mm-hmm. And I mean, there's a point where I kind of get it. There's a point where I kind of get it, because we do pressure test regularly because we do spar, we do roll. There is randori in jiu-jitsu. That's why it's a combat sport, because that's what makes combat sport. Combat sport is the fact that we go live, we train live.
Yeah.
But the training live is so sport oriented today that the fight part of it has kind of started to disappear a bit in a lot of places. And I try to keep that alive a bit in the curriculum that I'm putting out now that I'm at Baker's, only because it is an MMA school too. So I'm like, look, your jiu-jitsu should cross over and be able to carry over into the MMA training that you're doing too. We're an MMA gym when it's said and done. We're a fight gym. You guys are getting in there to fight. It's Pohada. So you should You should know how to control that distance. I know you're learning it in kickboxing, but let me show you the jiu-jitsu version of it. You should know how to deal with strikes off your back. Obviously, it's not where you want to be in a cage fight or in a street fight, but you need to know what to do when you're there.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. You know, and in order to be functional with it, you're going to need to make it a little bit alive, even if it's as simple as, look, just touch your partner in the forehead while you're rolling to keep them aware that you could punch them when you're ready.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot is so sport driven and sport oriented that that's where the focus becomes, because you only get a limited amount of time to work with people. And unlike when I was a kid in martial arts, when I was a kid doing like Kempo karate and Kaiju Kempo, it was all done through private lesson, and once a week you had the group class. Whereas what I see now, especially with jiu-jitsu, is group class is the regular place where you go to learn, and maybe people book a private. And so it's hard as an instructor when you've got 15, 20, 25, 30 people in a class to be able to get around and give the attention that's necessary to make sure that they're getting and picking up what they need and to keep it safe.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people have driven, because of the liability, really focusing on the sports stuff. And I know a lot of academies, they train to like the IBJJF rules. You know, at this belt level, you can't work these techniques. I don't want you even messing with the feet till you get the purple belt, kind of a thing. Whereas I'm like, I'm teaching heel hooks to teenagers.
To kids.
I am. They're called the knee-high killers for a reason. You know, but I have no. I joke with them. I get them in leg lock positions, and I obviously don't lock up the kids, but I start yelling at them. I heel hook children. I heel hook the children, and they just start laughing and working their escapes. But I'm like, look, if you're 12, 13 years old, and you're already familiar with it, by the time you're maybe a 17, 18, 19-year-old purple belt, and now you're at ADCC or even a blue belt at ADCC opens, and you can get heel hook, how far more are you ahead of the game than the ones who couldn't do it till they got the purple belt?
Right. Exactly.
So I don't see a problem exposing them to it and having them have an understanding of the position. I'm not even worried whether they understand the braking mechanics. They're teenagers. They're 12. They're youth. But I want them to understand the positions.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't never understand why they would put a limit on what to teach someone in a martial art. It's a martial art. You know, you're supposed to learn the ins and out of it, because like you said, if I'm training, we'll just say sport related jiu-jitsu, where we're just, you know, repping and we're not necessarily live, you know, pressure testing or doing anything live. If it gets to a situation where I'm not in a gym and I get into a scuffle with someone, once I get hit, it's over. Like the jiu-jitsu goes out the window. But you know, if you're in a situation where you're constantly being tested and you're training with strikes and you're defending yourself like we do, where we'll have classes where the person on top, MMA gloves. We're not going like, you know, 100%, but we're tapping, and, you know, like you said, I can hit you from here, and you got your jiu-jitsu to rely on to protect yourself. Granted, I've never been in a situation where I had to use jiu-jitsu outside like that, but it made me more aware of like, okay, I understand if something was to happen, this is a way I can try to protect myself, per se.
Yeah, and in the end, the way I look at it, the way I explain it is jiu-jitsu, whether it was judo or its evolution into Brazil, was meant as a fighting art. It was meant to use in a fight. Kano did the same thing when he developed judo. He wanted it to be somewhat recreational and have the ability to, you know, throw a person and let them get back up, and then they throw you. But there was still that self-defense at its core. It was meant for a fight. They were testing. They were doing competitions to see who was going to teach the police in Japan. In Brazil, they did it with the Vale Tudo matches. They pressure tested it in what eventually became the NHB, no hold bars matches. And I do feel a little bit like jiu-jitsu is losing a little bit of its roots in that aspect because we're so focused on the sports side. And look, there's money in it now. I get it. There's money on the sports side now. But at the same time, I feel like especially at the beginner level, at a fundamental level, when I award a blue belt, they should have a functional understanding of the self-defense, what strikes are there. I mean, when I've done seminars with like Hoyler Gracie, and I've heard other people say, well, there's no striking in jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, if they're telling you there's no striking in jiu-jitsu, they're lying to you. I learned headbutts from Hoyler and knee strikes to set up the throw. I learned punches to set up the submission. I'm not trying to knock them out with it by any means. I'm not trying to break my hand on their forehead and knock them out or hit the button or anything like that. But I'm going to hit them in the face to get them to stand up because now I can step in and hit my hip throw.
Yeah.
You know, so there is striking, and they should be aware that there is striking. There's the kicks aren't used to take anybody out; they're used to control distance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think some of that does get. I mean, I think some people dabble in it, some kind of dabble in it, but everybody's so focused, like you said, on the sports side. And you have a limited amount of time with each individual, and if you have a heavy competition team. You know, how do you get them ready for competition if you're taking the attention away from those strategies to do self-defense? It's a tough balance. It's a tough balance. And then to keep the revenue coming into an academy, you know, how do you make people happy when what they want are the medals? You know, and I get it. It's a tough balance, but I think that it's a balance we need to kind of try to find a way to maintain.
Definitely. Like, I totally agree with that. I mean, especially being a school owner, and, you know, you kind of have to, you kind of have to cater to the masses, so to speak, because, you know, the way we grew up, it's like, yeah, we get hit and everything else. That might not work for everybody. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, what do I do? Like, do I, like you said, separate the classes where, like, you got just the competition classes over here, then you got your hobbyists over here, and then you just got your weekend people over here. It's like a lot, man.
Yeah, it could be a lot, and understanding how to merge them, because, you know, if I've got the hobbyists, I remember I kind of saw myself as a hobbyist early on. Sure, I wanted to take an MMA fight. I wanted to compete, but I was 32 years old when I started. I didn't think I was going to be a UFC fighter.
Right.
So, you know, I went into it knowing that, you know, the instruction, the coaching side, that was probably going to be the direction I was going to end up. And my goal was to own an academy when I got started. So I, though, enjoyed when I helped the MMA fighters get ready for their fights. I remember in Vegas, Pride was coming out to the U.S. for their first show, and Robbie Lawler's coming into Vegas, and he's at our gym getting ready for a fight with Joey Villaseñor. And I'm in there, you know, just getting beat up by him because he's getting his camp started. And then I go to Albuquerque, and I'm training with my friend Greg Jackson, and Joey Villaseñor, who I went to high school with, is getting ready to fight Robbie.
Oh.
and I'm getting beat up by Joey now a month later in Albuquerque. And then when they fight, I'm like, I honestly don't even care who wins. I'm just excited that I got beat up by both of them in their training camp. And so even as a hobbyist, it was just the fact that I helped my competitors get ready. I helped my teammates, whether it was an MMA fight, whether it was a jiu-jitsu competition, I helped them. Yeah, when you're out there on the mat, when you're in the cage, you're by yourself, but it's your team that helped you get there. It's your team that helped you prepare to be there. And even as a hobbyist, it felt good to be part of that process. It helped me buy into the whole thing and want to stick with it.
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, I didn't care who won that fight at that point.
Yeah, I'm kind of that way too, where I've been, I got into the sport just to get it, like, just kind of got into it, whatever. And then once I started buying into jiu-jitsu, I was kind of like, man, I like this. I can see myself doing this for a while. And then as time went on, it was like, I started to love jiu-jitsu even more. And then I got more into MMA. And then I'm like, getting a chance to like train at different places and see people do kickboxing and Muay Thai and just boxing in general, every single time I'm like, man, okay, how can I incorporate this into jiu-jitsu? Obviously, they just didn't become MMA, but it's just like the setups, the movement and everything else. I want to turn this into my jiu-jitsu, and it's like, yeah, it's like it transforms you, man. Once you start to like, the more and more you buy in, you start to become the complete opposite of what you thought you was going to be when it comes to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and it's funny how your perspective changes. I grew up as a fan of pro wrestling, right? I grew up in the 80s when Hulk Hogan was peaking out. But I was always a fan of the catch wrestlers, the guys who really did the submissions. Yeah. But it was the show. And once I started jiu-jitsu, I couldn't watch it anymore because it got hard to suspend my belief, because I watched Kurt Angle do a toe hold and go, dude, he's not even really applying pressure
at all.
That angle's not right. That hole would be almost impossible to get him in real life. Yeah. How did he get there? And it kind of started to happen with boxing, because I grew up boxing. My cousin, the folks in New Mexico know who he is, Danny Romero, was a world champion boxer, fought Johnny Tapia back in the 90s. I grew up boxing with him, and even now I watch boxing, and I'm like, look, I can appreciate boxing for the science that it is, but damn, I see some openings to shoot in and take that fool down. I'm like, just clinch with him and dirty box. I want to see that. I feel like there's so many gaps, man. Expose it, And so it's hard to sit and watch it, because I'm antsy and jonesing to see somebody, hit a takedown and take an arm, because it's there. It's right there, man. And so
especially when you see someone put someone in a sleeper hold. I'm like, that's not doing nothing, man. Just turn your shoulder or just pull the arm down and you'll be out.
No. Even on the wrestling side, there's times where it's gotten like The Undertaker right before he retired. His move was the Gates of Hell, and it was a go-go plata.
Yeah, it's a go-go plata, yeah.
And I sat there looking at it going, well, that setup would never work, but it's a choke. I hit it like at least once a week. But I'll never get it the way he did it.
No, just fall back into it? Nah, never.
Yeah. Yeah. Or now there were some cool matches, where you saw some things like there was a match with Chris Benoit and Bobby Lashley. And Bobby Lashley's an Olympic level wrestler. He fought in MMA. Chris Benoit was a submission artist. And there was a match. They scrubbed it now because of the whole thing with Chris Benoit and his family. But I remember watching it back in the day. And it looked not unlike a no-gi match, because they were exchanging positions. Obviously, they weren't laying flat on their backs because of the pin. So it was more like a catch wrestling type style. But you were seeing legit submissions and escapes. And they were selling it in such a way that you're going, look, that looks like that could really play out that way. And then, of course, 2 or 3 minutes into it, 4 minutes into it, it devolves to, I'm going to give you that backhand slap and throw you into the ropes. And now you're going to take a bump. Yeah, but for a moment, for a few minutes, it looked like that could really be realistic, even from somebody who knew and studied and understood what it was they were doing. Yeah. So you can get that sometimes. And a lot of these guys that are pro wrestlers, they are jiu-jitsu guys. I mean, Daniel Bryant, I think he's a purple or a brown belt under Carlos Farias out here in Scottsdale. So they are picking up the submission game. I know Brock Lesnar was doing catch wrestling with, I think, Eric Paulson, which is why I'm surprised that he calls his move the Kimura seal, because it's a double wrist lock in catch wrestling. But I get it. More people are going to recognize the Kimura name because of MMA nowadays. The average fan is probably going to recognize that more than hearing double wrist lock, because catch wrestling isn't as popular. But you do see some legit stuff. It's just you still have to suspend your belief a little bit and be like, yeah, I know you'd never get it that way, but that's legit. He could turn his shoulder and be out of it.
It's so hard to, man.
It is, but
I swear, like, jiu-jitsu has ruined like movies for me too. Because it's like, jiu-jitsu is becoming like this, it's on this high rise now So they're, incorporated in movies, especially, movies like John Wick and what was another big movie that we went to, when Black Panther came out.
Oh yeah.
And the scene where they're on the waterfall, he's fighting in Baku, and towards the end he had him in that that triangle. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, all right, take it for what it is. Take it for what it is. Take it for what it is. Do not dissect it. Take it for what it is. But
even going back to older movies than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid watching Lethal Weapon, that scene at the end where Busey fights Mel Gibson. And I was like, that's legit groundwork right there. Right? Even then, because I was like, that looks a little like catch wrestling, looks a bit like judo. I didn't know Hoyer Gracie was involved with the fight coordinating or anything back then. I didn't even know who Hoyer Gracie was at the time.
Right.
And when I watch it now, I go, God, that looks like blue belt level maybe? Because he could have got out of that triangle and he's extending his hips. He didn't close the box to finish the choke. He's not really applying pressure to the arm. Why didn't he just get out of that? And then I got to remind myself, it wasn't in the script,
Oh man, it's so hard, man. It's so hard because we do this a lot, man. And as being instructors, we're there to instruct and make sure that people fix the stuff that that they're messing up on. So it just becomes like second nature. It's like you see something, like, hey, don't do that. It's like, wait, it's a movie. It's a movie. Of course he's supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Of course he's supposed to do that.
Yeah, he's not really trying to get him to tap out and break his leg. He just needs to look at it and sell it,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great to see the growth, but it can drive you a little crazy watching it sometimes.
Because you just gotta sit back and be like, hey, just let y'all know I was doing jujitsu before it was cool.
Right? And even part of me doesn't feel like that because I'm like, yeah, I started in 2006, but like my friend Mario, who's one of our other black belts over at Pro Edge MMA, he started back in 97. And my friend Eddie started out in 97 from Abu Dhabi. And I knew about it in 97. I screwed around with Greg Jackson while he was learning from Alberto Crane back in 97. But I didn't really know anything back in 97. And I was still partying and living up life and hitting up strip bars and traveling the country with my job. And those guys were already getting out there and doing MMA and doing all this stuff. And I'm going, now that was before it was cool.
Mm-hmm.
That was before there were academies on every corner. And in 2006, when I started, there were some more academies, but it wasn't that big. And now there's an academy everywhere. I mean, from Abu Dhabi, where my friend is in Avondale, there's probably about 5 academies within a 5-mile radius of it.
That's crazy.
And they're everywhere. And I mean, literally one day, a friend of mine and I went to an open mat up in that part of town, and we didn't know they had canceled the open mat that day. So we were like, okay, so we drove to the next one and the next one and the next one. So we found one that was doing an open mat because they weren't that far apart.
Right.
And there was no way I was doing that back in 2006. And there was no way that was happening back in the 90s. But now there's enough of them around that, you could probably pull that one off if you're in a big metro area.
Mm-hmm. Because that's one thing, we've been looking at spots and we've been trying to find like a good location. And at the same time, we're not trying to be too close to another school. But yeah, that's the thing you kind of have to look at now. It's like you type in jiu-jitsu school near me, and there's like 50 schools just in a 20-mile radius of each other.
Yeah, the map looks like it has a rash. Yeah.
Right. Because, I remember looking in the yellow pages for martial arts schools, and jiu-jitsu was nothing that came up. It was usually kickboxing, karate, and taekwondo. Yep. Was the big three.
And in Albuquerque, where I grew up, American Kempo karate was big and Kaji Kempo were big. And so the two big schools there had other black belts, and so we had academies for those, but they fell into the category of karate. And of course, I grew up in that Karate Kid era. I remember when Karate Kid 2 came out the theater, we had Dollar Tuesdays where movies were only $1 on Tuesday, and all the community centers would bring the kids all summer. And the karate school where my brother was training at, the Kempo Karate School, was right there next to the theater. And because Kempo, American Kempo, has some of its roots in Okinawan karate, they started promoting that they were teaching Okinawan karate and put up the little bonsai tree and tried to take advantage of all those kids standing outside for the dollar day at the movies.
Of course.
So that's what we grew up with, was that karate era. So they were everywhere, especially going into the night. And then Muay Thai started jumping up in the 90s.
Yeah. That was a rise of like kung fu movies and everything else. So yeah, everyone wanted to be a ninja.
Yeah, I did. Crazy thing, man. 10, 11 years old, Greg Jackson and I were in elementary school. And
Wow.
I would tell him, I'm going to be a ninja. I would tell him, I'm going to be a ninja. And he would tell me, I'm going to start my own martial art. We're 11 years old. We have a little breakdance crew together. We're playing in the playground. And years later, I went to a tournament and he's there. And I walk up to him and I said, hey, bro, I said, remember when I tell you I was going to be a ninja? He goes, yeah. I said, you said you were going to start your own martial art. Looks like you won that one because I'm still not a ninja. And of course, he has what's known as Jackson's MMA, but originally the name for it was Gaidu Jitsu, Way of the Street. It was a system that he developed. And so he did. He followed through on that. He literally created his own fighting system. I'm not a ninja, but I'll still choke you out,
Right.
But yeah, when we were kids, we all wanted to be ninjas. We used to make up stories that there was a ninja academy in the Sandia Mountains, and we had to find it so we could go learn ninjutsu. With that was the thing.
Yeah, because like with me growing up, it was like the rise of kung fu movies, and we had like Power Rangers and stuff like that. So it was just like, what a time to be alive. So
yeah,
but I consider myself a ninja. I can hurt people.
I mean, I don't walk as quietly as I used to because my bones creak and pop, and with my eyesight, I probably run into a lot of stuff. So I'm not as stealthy as I might have been in my youth. But I used to lay down, because I would see those movies where the ninja would lay down like a thin layer of rice paper, and they'd have to walk over it without tearing it to learn their stealth. So I would buy butcher paper and lay it down and walk over it, trying not to tear it. My brother and I would try to walk through gravel without making noise quietly. Yeah, I'm not so quiet anymore, but if I get a hold of you, it's over,
It's over.
You'll hear me coming, but
you may hear me coming, but I promise you, once I get a hold of you, so just give me a second.
Yeah. Give me a moment. I just got to follow the wall to get over to where you're at.
I forgot to stretch before I got here, but give me a second. Just let me warm up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. My knee's hurting. I'm going to start from guard if that's okay with you. Or the Simpsons joke where he falls back, opens his legs, jump in between my legs and meet your death.
Right. Teach you the art of jiu-jitsu. Now jump between my legs and meet your death.
Yeah.
Hey, man, you gotta find some something that works, man, because you obviously you can't be aging, and at the same time you're beating up your body every single day. So it's like, it's just like those memes you see in jiu-jitsu pages where it's like, jiu-jitsu is the best thing that happened to me. Is a picture of an old guy, but it says like Randy, age 17.
He's a wreck. Yeah. Yeah, no, believe me. And I'm feeling that. Last week, I got up in the morning and my right knee's a little achy. Didn't think nothing of it. I have aches and pains. As the day went on, it looked like I had a golf ball under my knee. Hurt more, started burning. And then I touched my knee and it's burning hot. Been like that every day. It's been feeling like it's burning. And I'm like, I'll throw some of my Professor Buddy Stoner CBD ointment on it and it would help. But, I can't put any weight on it when I'm on my knees. So I'm playing off my back. And I finally, one of my students is a physical therapist. And Carlos tells me, hey, bro, you might want to make sure because it's burning hot. He goes, just go to the ER and let them rule out that it's an infection in your knee or something. So yesterday I go to the ER. They do some X-rays. They're like, "Nah, no infection. You have good blood flow to your feet." Um, what you do have after they got the X-rays, I've got bone spurs in my knee.
Mm.
And so I go see the specialist on Monday. But yeah, my knee's achy as hell. I can't put any weight on it. So I'll sweep somebody and then pull them back on top of me because I just don't want to put any weight on my knee. But I'm still rolling with every person in class because I'm stubborn and I don't not want to do it.
Right.
Even though it hurts, even though I know a half hour after I get home, I'm going to be laying there with ice on my knee and it's going to be in a ton of pain. I'm going to be popping ibuprofen and slathering myself in my CBD ointment.
Mm-hmm.
I still got to get those rolls in. Plus, for me, because of my eyesight, I've got to touch my people to that doesn't sound right, but yeah, I got to touch my people to coach them properly. I got to feel where their mistakes are because I can't see it very well when they're rolling out on the mat.
Mm-hmm.
My eyesight's not very good. So if I can feel them, I can coach them better. I can give them the advice. I know where their balance is off, where their grip is wrong. So I have to touch them to give them the instruction I feel they deserve. And so I just have to modify what I'm doing. And it's not the first time I've done it with the knee. It's just this knee's hurting quite a bit. But yeah, I mean, here I am, 18 years into this, and I got spurs in my kneecap. And now they just want to make sure it's not going to shred up the tendons or anything like that. But yeah. I mean, I'm 50 years old now, man. I'm feeling every bit of those 18 years of training.
Yeah, man, and it's as crazy as we are aware of all this stuff, all the aches and pains, bumps and bruises. If someone was to say, "Hey, Nestor, man, we got an open mat like in about 2 hours, man. You coming through? You gonna duct tape yourself together and you gonna go hit the mats?"
Oh yeah,
I know I will.
Yeah, I do. If I get a call from one of my boys that says, "Hey, man, I'll come pick you up. We'll go hit an open mat." I'm like, "Babe, I'm going to an open mat." She's like, "I thought you weren't going today." Look, they just called. They're going to come get me. I'm going. I'm not even asking. I'm just letting you know because I'm not going to be
letting
here.
You know, right? We already know how this conversation is going to go. We know this.
Yeah.
So many times, dude.
She's so understandable and she gets it. Like me and Glenn, the owner of the gym at Baker's, we were talking on the way home from a tournament the other day, and I go, if you're going to be married, she has to be super understandable. He's like, no, he goes, because when I was dropping weight to make fights, he goes, I was a jerk. He goes, and I didn't want to hear from nothing. And all I wanted to do was focus. I woke up, I ate right, I trained, I slept. I woke up, I ate right, I trained, I slept. And if they don't understand that, they're not going to make it. I said, look, I didn't go to that level. I said, but my wife knew if I got the chance to train, that's going to be a priority. Now that I need the help, she pushes herself to get me there every day. She's the one that's driving me. So for me, it is a true partnership because, my wife has physical ailments that are messing with her from a car accident over 20 years ago. And she's got a bad back, a bad hip, the legs all messed up, her ankles fused. She deals with lupus and fibromyalgia, but she's pushing herself because she knows that I've got a responsibility to teach these classes. And she knows that mentally I'm in a much better mood and nicer if I go out there and beat up on some people.
Right.
So, she's over the years, she's been understanding. I think we've only had one argument where she was like, can't you let this go? And I was like, we talked about this when I started. I'm not going to quit this stuff. So it only happened once, never happened again. And she's been completely supportive. But yeah, you got to have a spouse that really understands and gets the addiction that you get from it.
Right. I'm very lucky and fortunate that my wife, she understood that too. Because I think it was a couple of times where she's just like, "Oh man, all you just do is train and da. But now, fast forward into now, she's like, "Yeah, I understand. I could be beat up, I could be hurt, and then next I'm limping to class." And she's like, "I know you're not going. I thought you weren't gonna go." I was like, I was gonna go. And she's like, "All right, man, just be careful."
My wife is. She even pushed me at times when I wasn't sure if I was gonna go. When I started going through all the stuff in my eyes and neither eye was working very well, I started to get close to going into a depression. I didn't want to get out of bed. All that kept running through my head was the things I can't do anymore. It's that adjustment period, when you're dealing with something like that. And she would go, "You need to get up, go take a shower. I'm taking you to the academy to go train," because she knew once I got on the mat, I'd have an hour or 2 hours where I didn't think about any of the nonsense, and my head would be better when I was done. And she knew that, and she was the one that got me up and said, "Get up, go take a shower, get your gear, get your gi pack. I'm taking you because I'm not letting this happen." And she knew that was the way to take care of it. So, she's been huge because she's been my biggest fan. She's been my biggest proponent. She's made sure that when she saw me in a bad place, she pushed me to where she knew that I was gonna, come out of it. And like I told you before, when we did the podcast, a while back, jiu-jitsu was partially what saved my ass because, I had something to give me some purpose to keep going with. I very easily could have fallen deep, dark place, and between my wife, my family, and my jiu-jitsu, I'm able to, persevere and keep going. And now, I know some of the students, some of the kids' parents have even told my wife, we weren't sure because we heard he was legally blind, how he was going to teach these classes, but he doesn't miss a thing, and he's teaching them, and the kids are loving it. I don't know how he does it, but he's doing it, and he's doing it with one eye that barely works.
Hey,
and
like you said, for me, I get my hands on you.
Yeah, that's it. And I've created like junior coaches with some of the older teenagers that are training with the adults to say, hey, you guys, help me with the kids, because I only have the one eye, and with that many kids, especially those little ones, it's like rounding up chickens.
Right.
And so, I need the extra pair of eyes. So I'm trying to develop the coaches too, so that they can become better as teachers also, because in the end, that's what we're all doing. We're all reaching back to the next group coming in to help them get better and learn the art that they love, you know? So, I've just found ways to make things work. And in the end, that's what jiu-jitsu is. You find ways to make things work.
You find ways to make it work for you. You find ways to make jiu-jitsu work for you enough that you can do this in the long run.
Exactly. And once you know and understand how to do that within jiu-jitsu, it applies to everything in life.
Everything, yeah.
Once you understand it, you can apply it broadly. I think Sun Tzu said it in the Art of War. Once you understand it, then you can apply it broadly. And that's exactly what he means.
Mm-hmm.
Once you figured it out within the art, then you can apply it to everything you do.
Right.
And I've discovered that in so many different ways. And every chance that I go into a different phase, like now that I'm running my own program and I'm teaching, I've stumbled into some things where I go, yeah, look, I'm learning that lesson in a different way here too. Even though I've been doing this for 18 years, there's still all these new things, these new experiences, adaptations I can make. How can I be a better teacher? How can I train better with my students to help them get better? How can I make my game better to keep up with these guys?
Yeah.
And all of that is happening at the same time that I'm sharing it with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And it's keeping me going. I mean, yeah, I'm feeling old these days. I hit the big 50, and some people be like, well, you're still not that old. Look, yeah. I remember looking at my grandparents when they were 50, and I thought they were old. I know my grandsons are looking at me and thinking that I'm old. But my grandsons, it's funny because they do make jokes about me being old. But then I remember, last summer we were in the pool at their other grandparents, and we were all hanging out, and their other cousins were there from their dad's side of the family. And my oldest grandson goes, this is my papa. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, so you don't want to mess with him. And it's like, how many kids can say their grandfather's a black belt and don't mess with him, even though they joke that I'm old? Yeah, I'm old, but I'll still jack you up,
Yeah.
So I'm like, I have some pride in that too,
Yeah, man. It's we are definitely creatures of habit, and it's and it's crazy as with the like jiu-jitsu. When we look at people that's older, that's older than us, that's like out there on the mats training, to us, we're like, yeah, that's where I want to get to. Don't care about the rank. It's just like, okay, you're 70 some odd years old and you're out here rolling with 20, 30-year-olds and you're keeping up with them. That's true. That's true jiu-jitsu, if you ask me. Because he has, he's older, he has no strength, the agility is not there, but he's working hard and he's going out there and grinding with all these other people that can just run circles around him.
And the high level ones, you look at those high level older guys like that, and they're so efficient.
Oh man, it's crazy.
I watched the red belt, and I learned this pass when I was a white belt, where you grab the sleeve and the pant and you just kind of explode up and go to the knee on belly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And as I've gotten older, my knees have gotten shot. I'm not as explosive, so I don't do it as much anymore. And then I saw a video of a red belt do it. And he didn't explode. All he did was grab the sleeve in the pant and take a step back.
Yep, just take a step back. Mm-hmm.
And I went, man, and all of a sudden I'm all over that pass again. Because I'm not exploding now. I'm just taking a step or two back.
Mm-hmm.
It was that simple bit of efficiency that brought it right back to me.
Yeah, that's like watching. That's like watching Grandmaster Joe Moira.
Yes,
he's he just got his red belt back in March. Back in May, and I've been under his system since I've been training jiu-jitsu. There's nothing new that he teaches that I haven't seen. He talks about his principles, philosophies, and I can almost recite what he's going to say word for word. That's how much I've watched him as I grew up doing jiu-jitsu. But every single time I look at him and he's going over something from bottom half or bottom side, and he still blows my mind with stuff that he does. He's already these are my core things. I keep everything simple, but I'm about to show you how I make my simple even look more simple. And it's just like no effort at this point. It's like they make one little small movement. It's just like boop, 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 boop. And it's like, dude, what, where, how? Like,
and now you're at that level, being a black belt yourself. Now that you're a black belt, you're looking at it, and it's those little details that somebody who's a lower or common belt, they don't even pick up on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because you know the position, you know the move that he's doing, but you're going, oh, it's that little shift right there that makes the difference.
Yeah.
It's that little tweak to the grip that made all the difference. But they're just seeing the big movement. You're seeing the little detail movement. Yeah.
Because I remember a couple of years ago when people started coming up with the terminology micro transitions or micro adjustments or whatever. Yeah. And I used to hate that. Like, I'm like, this is so annoying why people started to say that. But now looking at this type of stuff, that's what makes jiu-jitsu. It's like, you see the big movements, but it's just like, no, watch where he put his hand at, or watch how he shifts his hips before he moves, or watch how he turns a certain way. Yeah, those micro adjustments that they make it look just like this big grand thing, but it's like, nah, all I did was, like you said, with the tablecloth. Well, we call it tablecloth. We're thinking we got to like, no, you just grab a sleeve, grab a pant leg, grab a sleeve, and just take a step back and open your arms.
Yeah,
and it's just like, and they just flying all over the place. But you're like, I just did that. I just did this.
and when you think about it, like I was teaching self-defense to some of the ladies last Friday night at our open mat, and I always point out when I'm teaching self-defense that what makes jiu-jitsu effective for self-defense, if you've ever been in a fight, even when I was a kid or a teenager and I get in a fight, your mouth would get dry, the adrenaline would kick up, your pupils would dilate, and your fine motor skills go to crap.
Go to shit.
Yeah, it's work. Your fine motor skills are worked with. You think you're going to thumb them in the eye, it's not going to happen. That's too small of a target. But jiu-jitsu uses gross motor skills to control and work your way out or finish them if you have to. And that's why it's so effective in self-defense, because once you really do, like, we can practice it, you can get used to being in close quarters with somebody, but the moment it's your life on the line in a street altercation, that adrenaline's going to kick up, your pupils are going to dilate, your mouth's going to go dry, and you're only going to be able to do the big movements. And the self-defense gives you those big movements. But as you get better, and as you keep doing the art and you start to get a better understanding of it, those big movements become more effective because of the little adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
They're effective when you're a beginner because of the big movement. But as you become a practitioner and you progress in it, it's the little details that make those big movements that much more effective.
Yeah.
And it's a weird contrast, but it's there.
It's there, yeah. And just kind of piggyback off what you were saying about self-defense, teaching women self-defense. And a few years back we did a self-defense course for like a lot of younger girls. They were like going off to college and stuff. And we were like we're being like very, very blunt about the possibilities of being sexually assaulted and a guy trying to take advantage of you. And we were just like, okay, we gave them like a scenario, like, okay, what would you do in this scenario? So they laid on the ground, and our instructor climbed on top of them and was like, okay, now try to get out. And they're just flailing and and doing all this stuff to try to keep them from, and this is about to get colorful, but from getting in between their legs. By the time they did, they were tired, and they were just, like you said, worn out, adrenaline rushing, just mouth dry and everything else. So he was like, all right. Now he grabbed somebody else. He's like, okay, this is what I want you to do. Let that person get between your legs and then do blah, 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 blah. And they noticed the difference of like, okay, I can actually fight better in this position versus trying to kick and flip every part of my body. Like if you let them like you let them in your guard and then work yourself better, you'll be in a better position than when you was if you're just kicking and flailing your body.
Exactly. And if they got tired, kicking and flailing and doing all that, imagine if it was for real and you get the adrenaline dump.
Yeah.
How much more tired are you going to be?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's your life on the line now. This is for real, and it's different. We can mimic it as much as we can. And that's why competition started, was to learn to deal with the nervousness as closely as you could to a real fight. But nothing's like getting in the real fight. But if you're tired now while we're just learning it, imagine how you're going to be when the adrenaline kicks up and then dumps.
Yeah.
And that's where the big motor skills come in. But again, if you stick with it and you get the big motor skills down, and then you start working on the details as you progress and you get better and you get better. And now those big motor skills are even better because of the little details, the connection of the hip in the trap and roll, bringing that foot right up the middle in between so they can't, go in and put the leg in and connect their hip. Because I point out to people, a couple years back, I spent like 3 weeks back home in Albuquerque, and we went to a cannabis show with a friend of mine because he was a vendor. And there was a kid there that was a security guard. And he was working the door, and my friend goes, yeah, he's living in the dorms at Jackson's, and he's a semi-pro MMA fighter. So we start talking, and the following summer when I went out there, my friend tells me, yeah, man, he's not at the dorms anymore. He got hooked on drugs, and he's out in the street. It's a sad story. I feel bad for him because I like the kid. But then I went, man, that kid was a semi-pro MMA fighter, so he knew some shit. And if he's high and he decides he wants what you have, that's a dangerous guy, even if he's not training. Because if he's working off instinct, it could be even scarier. So would I really want him trying to get what I got while he's high? No. I better know something. Know something. Because how many, like we were talking about how popular MMA and jiu-jitsu have become over the decades. Damn, that means there are some crackheads, meth heads, and pill poppers out there that were probably potentially great fighters that did it, that might have trained since they were kids, that know some shit. And they're out there today.
Yeah, that's scary. that's
it is. Scary. So you better know some shit, and you better be training because they're out there.
Right. Yeah, man, that's...
And I thought about that and went, damn, that is scary. You never know what the other person knows. They used to say in early, if you look at like the old Gracie Combatives tapes, VH tapes from back in the 90s, they'd be like, what we're working on is, fighting the bigger, unskilled opponent. And that's still the goal most of the time. But damn, you never know how skilled that opponent might actually be. because it's much more prevalent today than it was back in the 90s.
Yeah. And I always
You
thought
know?
about that. Like, you never know who knows what. But yeah, just
Mm-hmm.
like you said, you get people that get hooked on drugs and life just deals them a bad hand. Instinct will kick in at a certain point, and it's just like, ooh, that's scary.
Yeah. And it's like, man, that's a person I don't want trying to get what I got.
Right. That's like, people always joke about like, oh man, Mike Tyson should never be boxing again and blah, blah, blah. He's old. I'm like, yeah, he may be old, but he's still Mike Tyson.
Yeah. You can say whatever you want, man. That's still Mike Tyson.
That's still Mike Tyson.
Yeah. And you see him on those pads and just the thump. And he's still swinging those short arms where that elbow's following right behind it. That's still a scary individual right there, even at 60-something years old.
Yeah. Like, he can be in a straitjacket, tie in a room, and there's like 50 feet of concrete between us. I would still be nervous.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That's Mike Tyson.
And I mean, he's in amazing shape for a guy his age. He's in good shape.
Yeah.
He's not like a boxer who let himself go over the years.
Nah.
He's not that guy in his 60s who's, using the Foreman grill and eating whatever he can get.
Nah, he's still in fighting shape. That's like what's the other guy? Shannon Briggs.
Mm-hmm.
Is another guy that's been, he haven't fought in God knows how long. He's in his, I think he's in his 60s. And you see him now, like, nah, he can give you another 10 rounds.
Yep.
Easily. But yeah, you never know, man.
Jiu-Jitsu's got that too, man, because you see these guys, like, if you just saw me walking in the street, I don't look like I'm in shape. I don't have the musculature I had in my youth. I don't, I walk with a limp because my knees hurt. I walk a little slower because I can't see what's in front of me very well. But don't engage with me because I'm not the one. I'll choke you out. You know what I mean? You just don't know. You just don't know.
Just don't know. You just don't know.
I've taught people how to take the cane that the blind people use, and when it's folded up, wrap it up behind the neck and use it like the collar for a cross choke.
Yeah, a force multiplier.
Dude, I'll use that because you're wearing a t-shirt and I live in the desert. I'll use that cane to choke you out. I don't care, man. I built that up. I have that old man strength to grab a grip and not let it go.
Man. Yeah, when you learn, man, you learn how to use everything around you.
And I tell people, I go, they talk about old man strength. I go, honestly, a lot of it's not even old man strength. I just learned how to make the grip efficient. I get that. I call it a threaded guard because that's what we used to call it when I learned it, but it's more commonly known as a lasso guard. Right? Okay. You wrap the leg into the arm, and you've got the cuff grip. Well, most people just hold the cuff grip through their leg. And I'm like, no, pull your hand to the other side of your leg because now your leg becomes part of the grip.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't have to kill my fingers or my forearms to keep this grip because you can't make the angle around my leg.
Right.
I'm not super strong. I just learned those little tiny details to make the grip harder for you to break.
They're micro adjustments.
Exactly. Or like Hickson likes to call it, the invisible jiu-jitsu.
The invisible jiu-jitsu,
yeah. Those little connections, that's all it takes. But yeah, man, it's a wonderful art. I love it. Like I said, it's saved my butt a time or two. I mean, I tell people when I'm teaching falls, I go, learn the falls, learn how to fall properly, front, back, side to side, because that'll probably save you before the self-defense even does. I went down on my heart back in 2009. And it was knowing how to backfall and keeping my chin down. The reason, because I was stubborn, I didn't wear a helmet. It's the reason my head didn't bounce off the road and why I just ended up with a little bit of road rash.
Yep.
Because I knew how to fall. When I lost my eyesight and I tripped over everything, my forearms hurt because I fell forward, but I knew how to fall. I didn't slam my face into the ground. Those things matter. Those things, if nothing else, like I said, learning how to fall alone will probably save you, especially as you get older, than anything
Yeah.
else.
And we had a conversation, group of guys I trained with, and that was one of the questions we kind of was talking about, like what's the most important technique in all martial art that you've learned? What's the most important technique that you have learned? And we was like, honestly, break falls.
Yep.
Break falls has been the best technique I've ever learned. But like you said, because you get older, you fall over everything, you trip over your own feet, and knowing how to fall. And especially if you hit it, outside on the street, someone rushes you, you fall. You're aware of, okay, yeah, don't let my head, keep my head up, or don't let this smack against the ground because I can be out, or even worse. So yeah, break falls are so important. Learning how to fall.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I tell people, I go, look, a pro wrestler has to learn how to take a bump. They call it taking a bump. We call it a back fall. There's a reason stuntmen are using it, because it works.
Yep. It works. Yeah. You may be in a little bit of pain, but your noggin will be okay.
Better than the alternative.
Yeah.
Better than the alternative.
Yes, sir. I'll take a little pain and a lot of dead.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And like you said, when my eyes went, I fell a lot because I wouldn't see a step. My wife, I remember we were at a mall and we were stepping up on a wooden patio for a restaurant, and I didn't notice the step, and I tripped forward. Yeah, my elbow hurt, but I didn't slam my face or hurt anything else because I took the fall. I did what I instinctually been doing for years.
Yep.
Is it did I feel embarrassed because I was clumsy and I couldn't see? Yeah, but that's ego there. That I can deal with later. The physical was the most important part, because if I broke something, I wasn't going to be able to get on the mat.
And that's it. That's it.
Everything is about being healthy enough to stay on the mat the next day.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's where the lifestyle comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people don't get it. That's where it becomes a lifestyle, because you get so addicted to practicing the art, even if it's just going to an open mat, that you don't want to miss the time. You want to take advantage of every moment you get on it. So you're going to eat better. You're going to live better. You're going to try to stay healthier. You want to make sure that you don't miss as much time as possible from the mat. You don't want to get injured and have to miss time and watch everybody else having a good time where you can't.
It hurts.
And then, again, it applies back into life. I got grandsons right now. I want to stay healthy to spend the time to watch them get older and watch them enjoy things and watch them. So now that healthy lifestyle is not just applying to Jitsu, it's applying to being there for my grandson so I can watch them get older.
Right.
My son just graduated high school. It's a matter of being there to watch him graduate and see him get the awards and commendations that he earned, and be there with my family. Because if I hadn't handled my life and let my diabetes get out of control and let myself get in the worst condition, I might not have been able to be there.
Exactly. And
so that then carries over everything full circle.
Mm-hmm.
It applies to everything.
I couldn't agree more, man. I got two little girls now, man. One's 8 and the other one's 4. So it's like, I want to be around to be able to see them, achieve the stuff that I know they will, and to be able to to interact with them, because they're kids. They want to play. They want to roughhouse. They want to do all the other ripping and running stuff. And I don't want to be the parent to just sit on the side and watch their kids play. Like, no, I want to be out there with them,
Yeah. So, and let me tell you, bro, it don't change when they become adults.
I know it don't.
My son's gonna be 19 this year. My oldest daughter, she's 27. I got another grandbaby on the way. My youngest daughter is going to be 24 later this year. My youngest daughter, who didn't want to do jiu-jitsu or anything, I made her do it a little bit. She didn't like to sweat when she was little. Now she comes to me and she's like, Dad, I want to start kickboxing. I want to go live in Thailand for a couple months and kickbox over there.
Hey.
And so now, whenever she gets the chance, we're heading out to Baker's. We're working on some kickboxing. She comes over to the house. We go in the dojo. I'm working mitts with her. I'm teaching her the basics. And I'm telling her, go look up Tiger Muay Thai. They got great packages. You want to travel to Thailand? I'll help you do it. Let's go. Let's rock. She's 24 years old, and now she's decided this is where she wants to go. You know who's gonna know how to do it? Dad. Let's go talk to dad.
Dad. Yep.
So that stuff don't change, man. I still need to be here, not just for my grandsons and my soon-to-be grandbaby, but my kids are older. I still want to be there with them now. They're adults. I still want to be there because they still come to me. I still want to be there to watch them grow. I want to watch my younger daughter get married. I want to watch this baby get born. I want to watch my son. You know, he's just graduated high school. I'm excited for him to see what he accomplishes going out in the world. You know, and I want to be healthy for that. And jiu-jitsu facilitates that because it gives me the lifestyle I need to ensure that for myself as much as I can.
Yeah. Yeah. It's jiu-jitsu's fault. That's all I like to say now. It's jiu-jitsu's fault.
Yeah. We can just blame it. We can just blame it on jiu-jitsu. We just blame it all.
Jiu-jitsu, man.
My wife already blames it all on jiu-jitsu. She called jiu-jitsu the sancha. The mistress.
The mistress.
She's like, she's a sancha I'm okay with. You know?
Yeah, it's definitely a mistress in my book too, man. Because it's like it's all I think about. It's all I want to do. It's like if I'm not training, I'm wishing I was training, and when I am training, I'm like, don't let this end. As tired as I am, like, don't let this end. But yeah. Well, all right, Nestor, man. So I didn't have this question when I first did the show, but I asked everybody who comes on now, past or present, your top 3 people you would love to get a chance to roll with.
Joe Moreira for sure. I've never had the chance to roll with him in person. Hickson Gracie, no doubt on that one. And I got the chance to roll with another red belt when I was a white belt, but I'd love to do it again now that I'm a black belt, just for the pure understanding of what it was. And that was Grandmaster Alvaro by head belt. Because I rolled with him in 2008 as a white belt, but the perspective is so different now, this many years later, and where I'm at now, I feel like I could just get so much more from it than I did when I was a 3-stripe white belt.
Yeah, as much as I've trained with Grandmaster Joe, I've never rolled him yet. I still feel a little intimidated to do so, but I'm gonna have to. I think he'll be back in Michigan at the end of the year. So I think I'm gonna ask him.
My friend Israel Juarez, Professor Israel Juarez, like I say, he got his black belt from Grandmaster Moreira, and he's always joking. He goes, when he was young, he would roll with everybody. He goes, he had them big old pork chop sideburns. I can't imagine Joe with the big sideburns, but yeah, he's got pictures of him with the big sideburns, and he's like, he would roll with everybody, and he was an animal. He was just strong. He'd grab a hold of you. Yeah, I see if he still has it, but yeah, he was always telling the stories because he started with them when he was like 16, 17 years old.
You look at people like that, and you hear the title Grandmaster and whatnot, so they've been doing this for a long time. It's hard to imagine them being any other belt. Because you're talking 16, you're thinking purple, brown, black, maybe, and it's like, don't even sound real.
Yes, it does happen. You forget the path that they had to go to because they've been at that level for so long.
So long, yeah.
And like, for me here in Phoenix, I have people that I've trained with over the years that are like, I put up pictures from when I was like a blue belt or purple belt, and they're like, you were a blue belt or a purple belt? And I get it from them. They didn't know me back then.
Right.
My friends in Albuquerque that I came up with, they were there with me when I got my blue belt, my purple belt. But the people here only know me when I got out here when I was a brown belt already.
You're right.
And I'm like, it's the same way when you meet somebody like that who's that red belt, and you're going, man, I never even knew them when they were a lowly black belt with no stripes at all.
No stripes at all.
I can't even imagine that,
Yeah. Yeah.
But everybody starts at the same place, man. Everybody starts at the same place,
Yeah.
Everybody starts with a white belt.
Everyone starts with a white belt. As hard as that may be true, but it is. Everyone starts at a white belt.
Yep.
Well, all right, Nestor, man. Unless you got any questions for me, fire away. If not, man, let the people know what you got going on. Shout out your school, man. The floor is all yours.
Absolutely. So we got Baker's MMA and Fitness in Surprise, Arizona. We got open mats out here Friday nights, 5 to 7. All affiliations and teams are welcome. I'd love to have everybody by. It's nothing but good rolls, good vibes, having a good time with good people. If anybody's traveling out here to Arizona, they're welcome to come and drop in with us at the gym. GFT Arizona is growing by leaps and bounds. We've got 6 affiliates here in the Phoenix area and one up in Vegas. And I finally launched my CBD Professor Buddy Stoner CBD pain relief ointment. I gotta get your address so I can get a couple out to you, man. I finally got that going.
To get it.
Yeah, I'll shoot you out a container. Hopefully it won't melt in the heat here in Arizona. But stuff works like wonders. I've been pouring it all over my knee because it's been in pain. The stuff works wonders.
Gotcha, man. Yeah, and I wish you all the luck with that, dude. I saw you post about it. I was like, I gotta get me some. So, but I know we've been talking about coming out to Arizona, but you're talking about almost 120 degrees, man. I think I'm gonna just stay right here.
Spring and fall, bro. Spring and fall is ideal. Yeah. 70, 80 degrees every day. Spring and fall is the time of year.
I got you, brother. But we talk on Facebook, man. We always keep in touch, man. But it's always a blessing to have you back on the show.
Appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate your friendship, man. And we'll get together and get some rolls in at some point.
Oh yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to happen for sure.
Yes, brother.
All right, that's the end of today's episode. I would love to thank Nestor one more time for coming on the show and bless us with his jiu-jitsu knowledge. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please make sure you follow us on our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube page to stay up to date on all future episodes. This has been Talk Your Jits Podcast. Keep rolling, keep grinding, and remember, long live jiu-jitsu. Have a great day.